Welcome to the podcast. Tony Cartkins from Time Bicycles, CEO. Thank you for joining us on the podcast, and thank you for a fabulous 2 days here in Slovakia.
My pleasure.
And amazing that we got this opportunity to sit down in the Isidore store to have a podcast for however long it takes. We've had a fascinating 2 days getting to know each other.
Thank you. It was a great time showing you around. And I'm glad you get to see some things here in Bratislava because the cycling culture here is really amazing.
It's a lovely city, actually.
It really is.
I've been really blown away by all of it. It's beautiful.
It's got a lot of big competitors with Vienna and Prague and Budapest surrounding it, but Bratislava is a wonderful place.
It is. It's a lovely place to put a factory as well. Everyone has been so accommodating and so kind at your factory. You must be so proud of your team.
Yeah, we really are.
It's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a first question. We're going to go in quite heavy and quite deep to start with.
Oh man,
I know.
Right out of the gates.
We're going to go there. So, Time is a French brand, historically French brand.
Yes.
We all probably remember the times of seeing on Mario Cipollini's forks and in the Tour de France those days.
Yeah.
It got brought by Rossignol, a ski brand.
Another proud French brand.
Yeah, it's now it's now made in Slovakia, a European country. Mm-hmm. You are about to open up a factory in South Carolina in America. So, what nationality is Time?
I mean, we're French. We're born French. It's French engineering. It's French heritage. It's French design. Now we've evolved to being European. We're proud of our factory here in Slovakia. We're excited about our new factory that we're adding into the United States. But, we're French. We're a French heritage brand, and now we're globalizing.
I think a lot of people were very happy to hear you say that.
No, we're proud of that. I mean, it's a special thing. Time is a special kind of halo brand in the cycling industry. And, mission one for us was to do the right thing with the brand.
Absolutely. And talking about that, the very first move that you did was almost announced the South Carolina factory. How did that all pan out?
That came through a technology opportunity.
Okay.
So about 6 months after we acquired Time, we started getting calls from some friends in South Carolina that knew our technology and said, hey, the automobile industry has really advanced resin transfer molding because the bike industry is pre-preg and Time is this one brand doing resin transfer molding. But resin transfer molding is the path that most of the automotive and aerospace manufacturers have taken. And so in South Carolina, they've got an amazing infrastructure there. We're in a region, the county of Spartanburg, where BMW's largest factory in the world is. And they did amazing things with resin transfer molding. So we got invited over for a trip there. We sat down with the government. We sat down with some of the universities. We met some different agencies that said, hey, this technology of resin transfer molding could be applicable to you if you consider putting a factory in South Carolina.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's really you're tying together lots of different things going on here.
Yeah. I mean, it's Time is now a very global brand. We've got employees all through Europe. We're building a team in the United States. But the core of our business is here in Slovakia. Of our 90 global employees, 65 or 70 of them are here in Slovakia.
Absolutely. And actually, looking around the factory, it's a similar setup here. We were driving past like Learjet, Volkswagen. There's some big.
Slovakia is a country where they manufacture. This is a maker's environment.
Yeah.
Because it's very strategically located. We're only a 1 hour drive from Vienna, Austria, but we're the other side of the Danube. And on the other side of the Danube is pretty much where Eastern Europe starts. And so it's a slightly different labor rate than what we're dealing with in Germany and France and in Italy. So it's a place where products like this can be produced and sold at a price into the market that's reasonably competitive with Asian production.
Yeah, it was. I did not consider how industrial that part of the world was, but driving around it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
place to put.
And the people that are in Slovakia, in the community where we are, they are clean living, hardworking, family people. It's a great place to manufacture.
It is. It's We're going to come back to that a little bit because we talked a lot on our tour about sustainability and actually being local to all of your suppliers must be really important to that. But before we do, I want to talk a bit about your journey with Time and the condition that you found it in when you took over from Rossignol. I was aware as a bike shop about wanting to be a time dealer, but it's always inaccessible. There's lots of barriers to becoming a time dealer.
Yeah.
When you took over, a lot of that changed and opened up to specialist workshops like ourselves. But that's just from my perspective. What was it like from your perspective, walking through the factory door, day one? Take it.
The funny thing is, almost for the first year, I couldn't walk through the factory door.
For the first year?
Almost the first year.
So
it
you
was
almost had
9 months
you almost
after
had no
we
idea.
acquired it before I was allowed to walk, because it was during COVID.
Of course.
And Americans couldn't travel to Europe.
So you almost brought this blind.
Well, I didn't buy it blind because I'd been a competitor to Time for 20 years.
Yeah.
I knew their technology. We shared a lot of dealers. A lot of those dealers, a good friend of mine is one of the best dealers in the United States, Ryan at Contender Bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him sitting me down when I was with Orbea, and he said, "Hey, I just got back from the Time factory." This was like in 2007.
Yeah.
He goes, "You need to go take a look at those guys. You need to see what they're doing, because what they're doing is amazing."
Yeah.
And so, I always followed them. I was always a fan of the brand. And, I was with Orbea in those years, and Orbea was on a massive globalization, path. But Time was always this special thing there. And so when I got the opportunity to do the acquisition, of course I wanted it. And it was rather awkward that I couldn't even step in the building before we'd done the acquisition. But I knew what I was buying.
Were there video calls with the people?
A lot of video calls.
Okay.
Yeah, we were wearing Skype and Zoom out for sure.
Okay, so you definitely met people, but you hadn't had the opportunity to engage with them face to face for almost a year.
But it was a sensitive sale because Rossignol is a very proud company, and they had acquired Time. And when a French company acquires another French company and they need to, divest from it, it's sensitive. They have to do the right thing.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of the other people that were looking to acquire Time wanted to do the normal playbook in the bike industry: grab the brand, run to China, do the normal deal. And Rossignol didn't want that to happen. Their biggest stipulation was, we need to find somebody that wants the factory. And I had just come out of a pre-preg project trying to build a pre-preg factory. And when a carbon fiber factory that's been operational for 20 years and has a workforce and process in place trades, buy it quick.
Yeah.
Because it takes at least 5 years for any facility like that to get on its feet.
Yeah, now you mentioned that, what's the one thing that really blew me away was talking to all of your employees at the factory and the staff there. They've been there a long time.
Oh, yeah.
There's some people that have served.
We've got
a career.
multiple people that have been there 20 years.
Yeah.
And then on average, 10 years.
And there's people there that are very proud that they knew every part.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the one little bit they did. There were people there that are genuinely like, I know how to do everything in this building.
Yeah, they do.
With
And
absolute
that's the only thing that factory has ever done. It's always done resin transfer molding, and it's only done work for Time. It started mostly as a fork factory, because when carbon fiber forks entered the market and everybody was riding these stiff, uncomfortable aluminum bikes, that business just went huge. But as Time became a bicycle brand, their OEM business of forks to other brands kind of faded away.
Yeah.
And so slowly, year after year, more and more production was transferring to France, to Slovakia. And I think it was 2018 or 2019 when they really moved kind of the last of it there. And then what was left in France was the development. So they would do all of the engineering and first production there and get it to a point where they could take it into serial production in Slovakia.
And there's nothing left in France, is there now? No. There's no development, no offices. No...
When we did the acquisition, we moved the final assets from France over back to Slovakia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the design head office, that's in the States, I believe?
Yes and no.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we started this in COVID, and most of our development talent is still in Europe.
Okay.
We use a couple of different groups in Sweden. We use some developers also out of South America who help us with some things. Certainly we have some people helping us in the United States, but the most important part of our carbon fiber tech is coming out of Sweden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You really are.
I mean, it's resin transfer molding.
Yeah.
So we don't get to go to all the normal bike developers that know how to do pre-preg. Asian factories aren't there supporting us. So we have to go a little bit more in the auto direction, because that's where that tech has really been advanced. That's where the know-how is.
It does seem to be the case, actually, that RTM definitely seems to be a European thing.
I would say if there's an epicenter for RTM, it's probably in and around Munich. This the auto industry there. Companies like Krauss-Maffei, who's one of the big machinery providers for resin transfer molding, that's probably where most of that technology really backs up to.
Of course. And that brings us on to the Munich Composites thing, which I'll ask you about later. But what I'm most interested in is after all that happened, what was once you had assessed the landscape, you'd gone in, you'd met the people and learnt the pain points.
No, we didn't get to do that because we bought this thing kind of at the start of COVID.
Okay.
Right. We bought it right in that point where we thought everybody in the world was going to die from COVID. Mm-hmm. But then 6 weeks later, everybody decided to go buy a bike. Right.
Yeah, I remember it well.
And so we actually started with a big inventory asset.
Yeah.
And we're like, man, it's going to take years to get rid of this stuff. Well, it took about 6-7 weeks. And it was
crikey.
all gone. And then we got more and more and more orders in.
Yeah.
You know, so we didn't get that moment to go into the factory and kind of really, you know, take a good accounting and really sit down with people and really kind of build future plans because we got inundated with orders. You know, and it was like the first 18 months was pure chaos.
I mean, what a great way to start a company, get some cash flow going.
Yeah, it was great. You know, it wasn't planned that way, but it was like repairing the plane mid-flight. You know, we had no choice. We are a factory, and as you know, there are very few factories in the cycling industry in Europe and in the United States. And so during that time of COVID and all those shipping delays and all the factory closures there, no one could get anything.
Okay.
So we were there in Slovakia banging out an amazing amount of bikes during that time.
So my question here was, what was your first move? But by the sound of it, your first move was fulfill orders.
Make more bikes.
Fulfill orders.
That was my first move. So it slowed down what our overall plan was because we assumed that we would do this acquisition. We would work through that inventory over a year. We'd be doing new product development, and we'd wait, 18 months and do a complete relaunch of the brand. That was what was expected.
Yeah.
But we didn't get to do that. So we had to fulfill all these orders, and then then we had the other side of COVID. We managed to partially last year, and now we're kind of into a space where the road bike industry, the gravel bike industry, the drop bar business is somewhat normalized now.
Okay, so let me change my question then a little bit. So you've gone through that process. You've sort of taken breath. You've taken stock of the situation. What would you consider your first distinctive move as a CEO, where it's just not just fighting fire or making things happen? When you said, okay, deep breath, I want to make this happen. What was that?
That's a great question.
That first thing that you can put your name to.
The first touch that I had with the brand is we took it into, the all road and gravel space. And that was a demand from the US market. It was emerging in Europe at that moment, but it wasn't really as strong as it is today. And it was nowhere in Asia at that time. So we introduced the 80HX, and that was quite a popular thing. Mm-hmm. I was able to put some touches on the paint and aesthetic of that because I had been a big fan of the initial carbon fiber brands that showed their craftsmanship and used kind of transparent inks in their finishes. So I got to put that into the brand, and that really helped globalize the brand.
Yeah, that amber dye that you put into
that amber dye with that brown saddle and bar tape thing, and then the British Racing green dye that we did.
Yeah,
that is what woke up the brand in America.
Yeah, and I think our customers now are reflecting on it, and they like to see that carbon, and it's almost a joke. They want to see it because that's what they're paying for.
I know. I mean, it kind of breaks my heart when we paint a solid color, on a bike. But we still sell at least half of our production is in the nude format.
Yeah,
and that's really what we prefer to sell.
So almost your first move was let's showcase what we actually do.
Yeah, let's show our work.
Skin back and show.
Rossignol had kind of taken a little different approach with Time, because Time was this super high-end brand. We were winning world championships in Paris-Roubaix and the Olympics, and the VXRS days. I mean, that was super proud stuff. And then throughout their journey, and then when Roland passed away and Rossignol came over, Rossignol made it a little bit more of a production brand. They started painting these things, solid paints, and showing no carbon fiber on there at all. And so when we did the acquisition, we had a lot of inventory that we had to work through. But as soon as we worked through it, we started bringing that fiber back, because that's what people really want to see. That's what's unique about Time.
And it does make me think that not only are you peeling sort of back the paint and showing the carbon, but I think you've also changed things of how you're showing the company. I mean, the fact that you brought a YouTube channel in to showcase the factory is quite progressive. You've done a lot of social media. You've been quite open with how Time operate as a company. There's no closed doors. I mean, you seem very open.
We're a unicorn, and we need to show that to the world.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's cooking in the same kitchen in Asia, except for just a few of us. And we need to show it, because that's what our fans, our consumers, our cyclists, that's what they want to see. They need to start seeing the face of Time.
Yeah.
And that, if Time did one thing poorly in their history, they weren't great storytellers. They had done this amazing thing, but it was, very, very limited information out there on it.
Yeah, very few people knew.
I think he was very protective of his technology. And maybe sometimes some people criticize us that we're a little bit too open, but hey, this is hard work. It takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of time. And we're proud to show it to everybody.
Yeah. And where do you see this market going? Do you think people are now starting to be a bit more patriotic and choose their brands on some personality and some heritage and some engineering, or are they still looking for price-driven choices? And
we're nobody's first bike. We're nobody's second bike, really. I mean, we appeal to people that have had everything else, and now they want the best, or a brand that they believe in the mission of, or a brand that is made where they live. That's more and more and more important every year.
Yeah, it's definitely something.
Especially now with this geopolitical craziness going on, we're in a great position for growth because of that. All that stuff that's happening, none of that has to do with us. I don't get one thing from over there. Our entire supply chain is right around our factory.
That's incredible.
And right around the factory that we're putting in the United States. Because in Spartanburg, where they have this, BMW is there with their supply chain, Boeing is there with their supply chain, Volvo is there with their, everything that we need is at our fingertips.
It is quite literally. I think you remember walking around the factory with you and you pointing out, that resin comes from there, that carbon comes from there.
Yeah, our tooling makers down the road,
Yeah.
Everything. It's just right around, because it's an industrious area.
It must help massively, not just in terms of sustainability, but also in terms of how quickly you can get things done.
Oh yeah, if we have a problem with our tool, we can put it in the back of a car. It can be there that afternoon. It can be back online the next day. And that is not normal. Not many places in the world you can do that.
No, and that's interesting actually, because I think one of the criticisms of the Time journey is you've been very slow to release the Skylon and new models.
Yeah.
And is that just a considered choice about, I really want to make sure I get this
right?
right?
Our tech is super advanced, and it took us almost 2 years to really wrap our head around the development process. Because when you're developing pre-preg bikes, you're just doing the external surface. You get it to look just the way you want, and then you hit the send button, and you're done.
So most of it can be done on SolidWorks.
When we do the outside shaping, the work has only begun then. Because then we have to do all the inside, all the carbon layup, all the wax work, and it's intense. If there is one thing that, one of our biggest challenges, it does take us longer, it does cost us more money to produce new models.
Yeah. So I guess one of the arguments with the pre-preg is, yes, you can make the outside look good, you can run various things through SolidWorks and get the outside looking good, and then you probably need to work out how the layup's going to work to at least make it strong enough. Well, you would think,
and some companies have some involvement in that, but most all that intellectual property, that know-how, that's at the factory level. So most companies, and I'm not saying all, because some companies really they roll their sleeves up and get involved in it. Most just send the external shaping over there, and all of that layup work is done by the Asian
And is it
factories.
a case of really just taking to the Asian factories and say, please make this pass all the strength tests?
I'd like it to weigh 800 grams. I need it to pass this test. How fast can I get it?
Okay. That's pretty much how the development goes.
That's the somewhat normal game.
Yeah, I thought it might be.
Yeah.
So you're taking definitely the harder path.
Oh, yeah.
And do you think it's the more righteous path?
I think in this environment today, absolutely.
Yeah.
I prefer to zag when others zig.
That's a good phrase. I like that. So one of our questions from our viewers actually was, is RTM process often praised for its stiffness, its durability, its vibration, control, its precision that you can work with, but it's also criticized for its extra weight. So I'm wondering, how committed are you?
It's falsely criticized for that weight. There's material change. There is work and advancement that we can do in the wax core that can lower the resin density in the structure. So we have nearly as many tools to us to lightweight as pre-preg does. I mean, we could certainly make lighter weight bikes than we make today, but we have a durability standard, we have a safety standard, and we have a ride quality standard.
Interesting. So if the Scott Addict now just comes out at 590 grams.
They're pushing the edge.
So in theory, could you make an RTM bike at that sort of weight?
I think that prepreg would still beat us, but if we wanted to launch a product like that, we could be within 50 to 75 grams. But it wouldn't ride like a time. It wouldn't have the durability of a time. If there's magic behind time, it's the way the bikes ride, because there is a difference in the feeling of making something resin transfer molding where you have an incredibly stiff structure, but it's still smooth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't ever have that nervous feeling.
Yeah.
You know?
We often describe it as witchcraft on our channel because, and the confidence inspiring witchcraft, because you can give that bike to anyone and they will descend off the steepest passes in the Lake District with a ton of confidence they never thought they had. And they will expect it to rattle their teeth out. Yeah. And they'll come back from a demo ride going, it was okay. Yeah. That's really weird. Yeah. And it rides like a steel bike, but it's made out of carbon. And people come away from that test ride going, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And if
that's our magic.
Yeah.
I mean, resin transfer molding does produce a product that has a completely different feel than prepreg does. It's just a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that is the vibration control. And do you think that is the resin transfer molding process, or is that because you can now start weaving, various different?
It's really from the resin transfer molding process. I mean, this is a Dyneema braid right here, and it has certain characteristics to it that are very interesting and can minimize catastrophic failure without adding any weight. But they really don't change the feel of the bike. The bike doesn't ride any differently because if we used more of it, it definitely would, and we've tested that. But what we found when we use a much higher concentration of Dyneema is we kind of have a dead feel to the bike. It doesn't have that snap that people want when they're on a really high-end carbon bike.
So the Kevlar that you put in this, you say, is more there for preventing catastrophic failure.
So Kevlar we're using in things like the fork steer tube. Dyneema we're using in things in top tubes, in down tubes, in some chainstays, in high impact areas on especially gravel and all-road bikes.
And it's the Dyneema that's the bio-based Dyneema that you have advertised on your frame. That's really about the vibration control and
and I mean, you can see inside of this, it's on the inside layer of that. And we've done a lot of testing, and we're doing another interesting round of testing with the Fraunhofer group on this right now.
Yeah.
And they're helping us determine for future products exactly what percentage of Dyneema in which layer of the braid. And so as we advance, as our future gravel products, I think we'll have some interesting learnings from that.
It's great. You actually do have, my takeaway, you've got a lot of collaborations. It seems to be an ethic of yours is to collaborate.
Yeah. I mean, this is not just time at this point. We're collaborating with Fraunhofer Institute, Clemson University. We've got some real, development talent that's assisting us here. And again, it's because we're resin transfer molding. And automotive and aerospace is resin transfer molding.
And they're interested, by the sounds of it. They're honestly interested in what
one of the great things about cycling is you can find any company that you need help from, and there's a high-end cyclist in that building. You just got to find that guy or gal. And once you do, you're in.
And is that how it works? So I'd always thought that the trickle-down technology would come from, the automotive. It's almost trickles into cycling. Cycling gets it last. But are you discovering, by the sounds of it, people are experimenting in cycling what they might take to automotive? Is that how you see it?
No, these are technologies that automotive and aerospace have developed and used for years and years and years, but they never had anybody to give it to in cycling. Because the other brands are prepreg and they're not changing their factories. So they couldn't bring it into cycling.
Okay.
I mean, Dyneema doesn't really exist in bicycle frames because everybody's using prepreg, and this stuff doesn't really cooperate in a prepreg environment.
So you're finding absolute cycling enthusiasts who are involved in this, who they go, have you tried this?
Yeah, and we've done this in the auto industry.
Yeah.
Or this is available, in aerospace. So we're playing in a completely different arena.
It's incredible you're getting that input, by the sound of it, a range of input from.
Yeah.
So
it's a huge piece of our future.
Yeah, this collaborative. That's what I really, really took away, was just you don't see yourself as an isolated. You're almost trying to spread out and see who you can find and what ideas are out there and how can we, take advantage of this, and how that's a really interesting project. I want to see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, it just I don't mean to focus too much on Asia, but when you're producing products there, they control all the ideas, all the way through paint. Everything's just sort of all these rules around it. This is the way we do it. If you want to do business with us, place your order this way. And what we're dealing with in this environment, and in a completely different supply chain that's backed up to the auto industry, there are numerous companies out there with amazing technology that have never had a way to get it into the cycling industry.
Yeah.
You know, and so we're in constant exploration of that. And now we've had a few breakthroughs, and now that we have some breakthroughs, it's opening new doors for us.
So with that in mind, Tony, what really drives you? What's the thing that you get excited about? What's the phone call or the email that comes in that makes you raise your eyebrows and go, "Ooh, that's an interesting thing. I want to get involved in that."
You know, I think the thing that really drives me is, you know, I was surrounded for more than a decade of people that told me, hey, it's impossible to manufacture this type of product, you know, outside of Asia. And, you know, when I got into the bike industry, everybody made their own product. You know, I was a kid that grew up snooping around the DeRosa factory and the Casati factory and, you know, all these places where everybody made their own stuff. And then, you know, in my years with Orbea, you know, I started with them when they had a huge, amazing high-tech factory making the best steel and lightweight aluminum bikes, like Columbus Starship, sub 2-pound, heat-treated 6000 series aluminum bikes that were awesome. We really made them.
Yeah.
And then this material came out of nowhere, and it just wiped everybody out. Mm-hmm. The factories were just gone because no one knew what in the hell it was, you know, and they didn't have time to sit there and figure it out and retool their factories for new technology, and all that stuff just closed. And it's kind of watching all of that happen across all of Europe and all of the United States. I think that's what drives me the most.
So is that an element of saying you can't do European carbon manufacturing bicycles anymore, and you like, hold my beer?
Hold my beer. Exactly. Hold my beer. Yeah. So I'm on a 10-year mission of that. And, you know, I tried it with prepreg. We got pretty far along. But what I learned with that type of manufacturing construction, it's simply too man-hour intensive. You know, there are certain parts of the process take way too long in man hours. And when you're dealing with $2 an hour labor, or in Myanmar and Cambodia, $1 an hour labor, who cares about 20 extra hours? But when you're doing that in Europe or you're doing it in the United States, you can't have black holes of time like that. You've got to be super efficient. You got to have a process that's faster, you know, that's cleaner, and that gives you a better structure and a better surface.
And how do you find that efficiency then? Do you find that efficiency through leadership or education, or?
Well, part of the efficiency just comes from resin transfer molding and how we braid and how we do our layup, because you saw on our factory tours this week.
But this takes skill.
We've
seen it.
Yeah.
It's not
so
easy.
we were able to acquire 25 years of skill. Okay. So that was, you know, that doesn't happen. So that's our unicorn there. But you saw before we even close that tool and do injection, that thing is almost cosmetically perfect. Mm-hmm. You know, that's not the way prepreg manufacturing works.
No.
You know, thing goes in ugly, comes out ugly, and takes a lot of time to get it beautiful. You know,
from what I've seen from prepreg, there's a lot of sanding.
A lot of sanding.
Yeah.
And in the preforming process, it's never the same thing twice. It's a very difficult material, and a tremendous amount of sanding. I mean, more hours than anybody will admit. But when you're paying $1 an hour for the labor, they don't care.
So in the race for more efficiency as the way that you can compete with Asia, what do you invest in to find those efficiencies?
I mean, the machinery and the tooling that we use is a lot more expensive than prepreg. Mm-hmm. It is. But we get product out of that tool that is much more efficient to get into a final bicycle frame set.
Okay.
So it's reducing those man hours. So we're continually working in ways that we can make a lighter weight, stronger structure that is faster to produce into a bicycle frame after we've done the injection.
So you're investing in that tooling and the is that about making your tooling more precise? You know, we talked on the tour about the tooling has a lifespan before it then needs to be refaced because it now needs more work post-production. So is that?
Yeah, there certainly are different layers of tooling. You know, a lot of small production facilities get to use aluminum tooling, and that's a fraction of P20 steel tubing. And then you can heat treat your steel tooling as well, which makes for a better and stronger surface, so you get a more perfect product out of it. And each one of those steps just costs more and more and more money.
So it's interesting. So the next part was in terms of those efficiencies and the staff there, I mean, how long does it take to train someone when you take a new member of staff?
You know,
in the factory?
Our building is kind of broken into 3 different halls.
Yeah.
Hall 2 is where we have, you know, kind of our real intellectual property, which is the threading and the injection piece. And jobs in that hall can take 6 to 9 months before somebody's really up to speed and can do it on their own. But the other halls where we're taking these injected parts and we're machining them and we're bonding them and we're sanding them and we're painting them, most of those processes we can train in 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
But you were in the threading with those women. First of all, some people have just an allergic reaction to carbon fiber. And in the injection room, some people have an allergic reaction to some of the resonant hardener pieces in there. But then it's at least 6 months before somebody could ever attempt to be able to complete a front triangle for injection.
That's quite a long time.
It is, but it's very intricate, detailed work.
It was incredible to watch them work, actually.
Most of the employees that we have in Slovakia are female.
Yeah.
And in carbon fiber pre-preg preforming and in threading, most jobs worldwide are female. Smaller hands, more attention to detail. They're just much better at that work.
And what seemed to me a really happy atmosphere. I mean, I had a preconception of going to a factory of it being very clean, very clinical. And it is, don't get me wrong, it's a lovely, clean
we can be cleaner,
environment. But also there was some humanity there. There were pictures on the wall of the staff nights out. They had pictures on their desks of their children and their family.
Most of the people in this factory have been together for more than a decade. They have become a family. Most of those people live in that community, just north of Bratislava. So they're very well connected.
And
we have people that have met in there and created couples and built families of employees in there. And it really is a family.
And there was hard work, but there was also banter and joking as well.
I mean, well, everybody's excited we have a new product now.
Yeah.
That puts a little more pep in everybody's step, but people are proud of their work, this facility here in Slovakia wasn't really talked about.
Yeah.
It was somewhat off the map. I can remember, some of my first trips here, I reached out to some Slovakia cycling media, and they're like, what do you mean time is made in Slovakia? Well, it's only been here 20 years,
You're so right about people being proud of their work, because one of my fears about coming here and recording was what barriers are we going to get? Are we going to get people who just don't want to be on camera, who are going to clam up and just not want to see us film the really interesting stuff? Found the complete opposite. Your team were amazing. They opened up and said, yes, come and film this.
Yeah.
They really wanted...
I noticed some of the women had nicer earrings on when you were filming today.
Just everyone was just so proud of what they did. They wanted to say, here, take a picture of this.
I mean, they do amazing, some of the best work in the cycling industry. People do. And so when they get their shot to be on camera to talk about it, they want to do it.
The lady on the bottom bracket stand, she was amazing. And we weren't allowed to film all of that. But I felt really honoured to be able to witness that happen, because it was someone who was so well practiced and with their craft.
Yeah.
It was incredible. So I'm sorry we can't share it with you guys.
I'm glad you enjoyed watching it.
So, okay, who inspires you, Tony? Who if you were to...
Who inspires me? I'm very respectful of Roland Catan.
Okay.
I think we're going to do everything that we can to stay on his mission. The challenge of Le Défi, challenge of doing it yourself and doing it better. We're going to keep on that path for sure. It's a great question. In the cycling industry, I'll admit there's more disappointment in how brands have taken their decisions than there are inspirations in cycling.
But I think that can be an inspiration in itself. It's certainly the inspiration of what drives me to be a specialist dedicated workshop, because I grew up about sort of disappointed around the retail-centric side and ignoring the service side. So that's almost the inspiration, if you like, is to not be like the norm. Is that something similar? A little bit inspired by, we're doing it different.
Yeah, we're doing it the right way, and it's the hard way. But, the right way is usually the hard way.
I can totally sympathize.
Every shortcut that I've ever taken, I got the same result.
I often get criticized by people say, why don't you just put some product on the shelves and sell it? Why don't you sell it? And I'm like, no, because I don't want to just buy stuff.
I remember my grandfather sat me down early in my career in the bike industry and said, Tony, you have to sell 10,000 bikes a year. Why don't you go sell ocean liners? All you have to sell is one a year. I'm like, I don't want to sell ocean liners.
That's good. Okay, I've got a couple of questions from our fans. We put a little Instagram post out.
Yep, saw that.
Everyone else had leaked the Skylon, so I thought I might as well join the party and let everyone know that we're here.
Yep.
And we had some great responses. Some of them were going to make you just like Face Palm, and there's some other really good ones. But I think, should we deal with the Face Palm one first?
Yeah, hit me hard first.
Are you going to make another in-brake bike?
No.
Okay.
We started and stopped twice. And first time, people got really upset and they rushed and did orders and dealers stocked up. Second time, they didn't care.
Yeah.
And it's getting too hard to source the parts. Tire width on rim brakes is a nightmare. Everybody wants 30 and 32C compatibility, and it just doesn't work. And certain markets like the UK, some parts of the United States are into it, but now that Asia has really gone disc brake, there's just not enough following for it.
Yeah, I feel
and
like
as you saw in our if we run 2 different product lines like that through our little factory, it's utter chaos. It just in that bonding room, having something so different, it just slows us down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sorry about that.
No, I'm with you.
However, we still have about 5 or 10 left. So if anybody sees this and wants one, reach out to your sales rep.
Yeah, we definitely see that. We see an awful lot of things in the comments about wanting them, but the reality is that nobody's coming into the shop and actually putting their money where their mouth is. So, the next one is future colours of the Skylon. Well, obviously we had the leak of the nude, the red, the purple, and the white.
Yeah, we decided to launch with 3 safe colorways, 1 fun colorway.
Yeah.
And we'll use that for the initial launch of the product. We'll learn from that, and then we'll begin to evolve it. One of the things we've invested a lot in the last 18 months is paint technology and paint capacity. So as Skylon gets into the market, we can offer more color options and some different upgrade things in its future.
I think it's what you're becoming really famous for, actually, is actually changing your paint colors fairly frequently.
Well, again, most of the people sourcing out of Asia have to send those orders in like 18 to 24 months in advance. In our reality, we're launching with this cool purple color, and if it just fades off really fast, we can change production on that next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And in this environment, I think most of our dealers appreciate that. We're fast moving, we're quick on trend, and we keep it fresh, because when you're dealing with things like social media marketing, you can only show so many pictures of a raw carbon bike until people start to yawn. It's our most beautiful thing. And the funny thing is, a lot of times it's colors like this purple that bring people to the brand, and as they walk to the cash register, they get the raw carbon one.
Yeah, we haven't seen the purple yet in the flesh.
Yeah, we held it from you today. That was intentional.
It was.
It's pretty special.
It looks fantastic in the picture.
It was really hard to get the formula right for that, because it's a multi-stage paint. It has this shiny silver base on it, and it was really tricky to get to that kind of perfect, super bright royal purple, but we hit it.
But one of the questions from my partner Vicky, she asked, "Are we going to see the Skylon in porn star pink again?"
Certainly a possibility. Pink was our red has always been our top selling color in the Chrome and the Brilliant series, but pink was a close second to it.
Yeah, that pink was amazing.
And we came down to, are we going to do it in pink or purple? And we put a poll out to some of our product team, and everybody decided, hey, let's go with purple because it'll be fun.
Okay, on to some more serious questions then. Will Time ever go racing again?
Yes, we will. The fact is, if we sponsored a world tour team and won the Tour de France next year, we wouldn't sell one more bike, because we don't have the luxury of calling the factories and say, hey, send 10 more ocean containers over. We got big orders.
Okay.
We make them ourselves. So for us to be able to benefit from a high level sponsorship, we got buy more machinery, train more people. And so as we're adding this second factory in the United States, we're bringing in more capacity, and we're getting ourselves in a position where in 2 to 3 years, we will probably desire and really need a high level sponsorship to help us grow to that next level.
Excellent. So it does beg the question. So the Skylon is being billed as a race bike. Do you see that as a competitive race bike? Do you think we'll see that on domestic races?
we don't sponsor a Pro Tour or World Tour team, so you won't see it in that environment. But everywhere else, in regional racing, some continental teams will be using it. It'll be out there for sure.
Excellent. Can't wait to see it.
But it's a product that is worthy of being in that environment. Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, here's a question about sustainability. I know that we've touched on this a little bit about how local all of your suppliers are, which is fantastic, and there's a little bit by luck as well, I guess, or judgment by locating the factory where it needs to be.
Yep.
But with the drive, the world seems to be pulling away from sustainability at the moment, but there's definitely a want. Aluminium, steel used to be very recyclable. Carbon fiber is known to be very economically friendly, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So what are you trying to do in terms of sustainability? Trying to make time. I mean, we saw the wastage. But
Yeah, I mean, a few things that
that's-
we inherited here is we inherited a core technology that's wax.
Yeah.
This wax is reusable, recyclable. We can get almost 10 frames out of this wax. So
Okay.
that's pretty amazing thing right there. Instead of throwing a bladder in the
And
trash or
the comparison to that is normally you get a plastic bag,
plastic bags,
you
and people are
inflate it, and
using
it goes straight in the
styrofoam
bin.
inserts, and it goes right in the bin.
and every frame has what, like 6 or 7 plastic bags in it, I guess. So that's okay.
And so we don't deal with any of that. And then you saw in our threading room the amount of waste that we have on our floor. Little fibers like this, but nothing with any resin or any epoxy in there. So, pretty good stuff.
Yeah, your factory actually has lovely parquet flooring.
Yes. I've wanted to recondition that because it's actually pretty cool stuff.
It is, yeah. It would look great if it sanded back and filled
Wouldn't
in
it?
and stuff.
Yeah.
But you were very proud
Future
actually
project.
about walking around the
Yeah,
end.
I'm like, look at the floor.
the end of the shift.
I've been into
like-
a lot of other carbon factories. And there's a lot of nasty stuff on the floor.
Yeah.
And I like to snoop around and see what's in the dumpster.
Yeah.
But here it's pretty. It has always been this way. It's not like this is a new campaign for us. Other things that we're doing here, we are always in search of sustainable resin technologies, and there's interesting technologies emerging, but they're not really there yet in a performance environment.
Yeah, and this is to do with the resins, I guess, isn't it? It's probably the worst part of everything, isn't it?
So the world is focused on more sustainable resins.
Okay.
And we're involved in one project in France right now. I don't know if it'll get to the finish line or not, but there's a lot of people working on that.
And this is what do you think, a biodegradable resin or
Yes.
something along those sort of lines? Okay.
And then the other thing is, we are a factory. We can actually repair our bikes. And we have a construction methodology that allows us to, make some small repairs. Others can't do that because they don't have a factory. And you don't send product back to Asia to have a dropout replaced. We don't really offer it because it complicates our normal production, but we can do it.
So-
And we do it, a fair bit. We have a lot of historical time owners that have a dropout issue on an older bike,
Yeah.
right? And so if they're the original owner of it and they've been riding that bike that long, we can fix it,
I mean, I can see how you could do it. I guess you've still got the molds to make a new stay.
Yeah.
It's pretty ambitious, though. You mean to have to really.
But you saw our construction of how we put the dropouts together, how the chainstay system goes in. All of that can be repaired if it needs to be.
Theoretically done. It's time consuming, I'd imagine, to make one.
Sometimes it's more time consuming than just making an entirely new frame. So there is a point of no return in there.
Yeah.
But the fact is we're capable of doing it.
Okay,
And we do it
okay.
sometimes.
So there could be in the point in the future where making a one-off stay could actually be a more efficient rather than having to get the molds out from something that you made 10 years ago and then make another wax mold and then do. Yeah, okay. I can.
And another area we're working on in sustainability is in some new finishing technologies that are coming to carbon fiber.
Okay.
And I don't know if we'll see it come to market inside the next 12 months, but there's a lot of work in sustainable finishing.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I can imagine time being on the forefront of that.
Yeah, we want to be.
Yeah.
The problem is it needs to look almost as good as our wet paint does.
Yeah.
And it's getting close.
Yes.
It really is.
Okay. We're looking forward to that tipping point.
Yeah,
It's,
me too.
Okay, here's a cheeky little one. So our channel and time are known for quality control.
Yes.
And we had an amazing time with Peter. Thank you for introducing you to Peter. If we could speak the same language, we would still be talking, I swear to God.
He has a lot to say.
Yeah, it's probably just as well that we don't speak the same language. So the question is, what is the QC failure rate at time?
Oh, it's so minimal you wouldn't believe it.
Okay.
I mean, we capture 99% of anything before it even comes into our final assembly hall right there. And if we catch a problem, most everything we can just send it right back and do a repair on it. So the things that leak out are things, we're doing some painting in the subcontractor right now to get a little more paint capacity, and we had some growing pains there, but that was more growing pains on us, maybe training in the assembly process of a few things exactly. But no systematic issues. I mean, even if you just saw like our warranty register as compared to the cycling industry, it's just nothing. It's not a factor.
Okay.
And
I guess that comes down to people like Peter. And I guess at all
yeah, I mean,
stages
Peter's been
who are-
tough. I mean, Peter, for almost a year was keeping us from really growing because he was maintaining the old French, uber quality standard, and as you scale a company, we're a little over triple the production of when we acquired time, right? And so that you pressure that quality standard some, but after a few years of this, we finally got to a place where it really works.
And Peter seems to be training more people as well to the standards that he looks for as well. So things seem to be being caught further down the line.
I would, one other way to answer your question, I would say, 9 out of 10 issues we ever have like that would be something that would happen with a clear coat.
Yeah.
Clear coat sometimes is the enemy of really tight tolerances and things like when they move from 11 to 12 speed, on the Shimano cassettes. Clear coat becomes a real factor right there.
Yeah.
And when you design the frame, you're not really taking into account, there could be a little clear coat heavy on that piece right there. Silly little thing.
Oh man, the skill of the guy doing the clear coat was insane.
Yeah.
That was
Clear coat's hard.
I hadn't really anticipated. He was just like razor sharp on his vision, constantly moving things around. That thing just never moved.
If you don't catch the problem in that stage, you just created a mountain of work for about 10 people.
Yeah. And I can see how a little bit of clear coat build up.
Yeah, you let that thing dry, you move it to the next process, and then you have to start all over again.
Yeah. If that's one of the few problems you have to worry about, I think you're doing okay. What happened to damped forks, the active forks?
2 things happened to it. I think the biggest, killer of the active fork project were these wider tires, lower tire pressures. It just took away that need. That was really designed for the days when we were 700 by 23 with 120 psi, and people were getting, and that's not the way anymore.
No, you know, 28 millimeter tires and stuff you don't.
Yeah. So it sort of became redundant. We thought about bringing it back as a gravel project, and we're watching some of the things happening there, but at this point we kind of feel rest in peace.
Yeah. So this next question then, I don't know how we're going to answer this, but we need to be a little bit abstract with it, I think. I think we all want to know what tech that you're working on. Now, I know that you can't tell us, but maybe if there was a dream, something you thought was, that area really needs improving. I wish I could find some technology there. Could you at least lead us down a thought that something might be on your mind? I said, I wish I could improve that bit.
There's 3 big areas of tech that we're working on. We're working on higher pressure injection for resin transfer molding.
Higher pressure again.
Higher pressure again, but a lot higher pressure.
Okay.
Because as you increase the pressure, you can get to nearly a glass level of surface on the product.
Okay. When you say a glass, do you mean a glass of volume of resin, or do you mean a glass
just
finish?
Something that's as smooth as a piece of glass.
Okay, you literally mean it out of the tool.
There are some technologies in automotive, and like if you see a dashboard inside of a $150,000 BMW, that thing came right out of the tool. So there's some technology out there that's really amazing, super expensive technology, but we're playing around with some of that right now, and I think it could eventually bleed into the cycling industry.
Interesting.
We're always working on lightweighting, and for us, a big part of lightweighting is the core technology, because wax is interesting and some other cores are interesting, that they expand, and as we put these into the tool and the core expands, it's reducing the amount of resin in the structure, and it's increasing the percentage of the carbon fiber in there, making a better structure. And so there's some interesting technologies and cores that have a potential to maybe be a little bit of a game changer in cycling.
So you're looking for waxes that expand more?
Waxes or other things things that have a little bit more thermal expansion, but it's got to be a very controlled thermal expansion.
I guess
we have to be able to calculate it exactly.
Because that really struck me when you're making those steel molds, is to how to calculate for all the thermal expansion. And
that is one of the slowest pieces of our development process, because we will go through 15 or 20 development cycles until we get that just right.
And that's what takes the time, I guess, isn't it? Because you've got to
because each time you have to make a change on that, you have to go get your tools resurfaced.
Yep.
And these are just micro changes in certain areas.
Yep. And you said there's a third?
Well, the third I touched on briefly is some of the things coming in the finishing technology. There's some ways of finishing that are about to enter carbon fiber that I think will be game changing. Game changing for a few things. One, very interesting finishes, but very durable, sustainable finishes that might be more efficient to do than the processes we showed you in our factory this week.
Sure.
Because what we showed you there takes a lot of time, and to get that thing perfect, it's 10 hours of work in the paint department, over a 1 week period for a frame. So there's some work to be done there.
Okay, look forward to that. Very, very interesting. So everything's just about making the same product, just gradually making it a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, little marginal gains everywhere.
Just make it a little bit better. So we were expecting the first bike out of the South Carolina factory to be the new Skylon. It looks like it, obviously the Skylon.
We thought about it.
But so what is going to be the first bike out of South Carolina?
Well, I can't say that yet, but I'll give you an update on that. I would say the month of May. We do quite a bit of work in April, and we did our proof of concept of their technology on the 80HX, our top selling bike at the time. And in that development project, we learned some things that we could do to the design to make it more efficient for that manufacturing process. So we did a complete reboot and made a new platform for it. And so more information to come on that.
So not far away then. You're thinking you're fairly close to.
Yeah, we're within 12 months.
I think there's a lot of anticipation to see what comes out of stuff.
Yeah, now we have Skylon back in the market, so we have our aero-inspired full race bike, and so now we need to go the other end of the spectrum because the challenge in the bike industry is a lot of brands just move from one bike to one bike to one bike to what's new. And our mission at Time is to get to multiple platforms that are viable in the market. And so this next one is a road platform, but it'll be pretty much the exact opposite of what we're doing with Skylon.
Interesting. In fact, in the terms of, I'm just going to go on a slight tangent here if you don't mind, but the traditional categories of road bike, of race, climb, endurance, you don't really seem to be conforming to that. You seem to be just making.
Well, I mean, I think endurance has kind of faded away because all road and endurance have had this sort of collision there. And so now any endurance bike can also take a 40C tire. Well, that's all road, So there is a permanent platform there. And right now our Alpdo SX fills that very well. I mean, it's perfect for 32C road tires, but you can put a 37 gravel tire on there. So we're quite happy with that platform. Gravel is emerging. It's funny. Half of the market tells us 45C, keep it a road bike. I want to be able to put, a double crank drivetrain on there. And the other half is going, man, dropper seat post, suspension adjusted geometry, storage tank in the down tube. Yeah. And so we're watching that one closely, But yeah, our goal is to end up with 4 to 5 platforms in the market.
Okay. Across road and gravel.
Across road and gravel. I mean, we're a drop bar brand. We're true to the heritage of the brand. So you're not going to see us go into mountain bike development or anything like that. But hell, gravel bikes are almost turning into hardtail mountain bikes right now.
Yeah, they definitely are. Common suspension and everything.
Yeah,
incredible. So Tony, the thing I'm taking away from this is the collaborative, very developmental, driving efficiency. So the final question is, if there was a brand or a philosophy that you would like to collab, what would be your dream collaboration?
We've been in search of collaborations because I really believe in them. I think they're great for marketing efforts and extending our brand into other categories. So we've talked to a lot of clothing companies. We're doing our first project with Isidore. We're launching it in a couple of months. We're bringing back a limited run of the Le Défi cycling kits and cycling caps.
Interesting with the original logo.
Yeah, that's going to be a super cool collab. But on a larger scale, like to do something with somebody technology based. Love to do something with the right automotive company that has something to do with resin transfer molding, where we could speak together about why we both believe and use that technology. That would be great. Also on the sports marketing side of things, I think there could be some interesting athlete collaborations that could become available to us in the future, because I think they could help us with some product development, help bring us into some other categories. I'm really intrigued with the female cycling market, and I see a real lack of brands, truly focusing on, high performance female bikes. And I think a collaboration, the right collaboration there, could lead us into doing a new product line that could be really well received in the market. So takeaway is we're really open to the right collaborations.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to that on all of those, especially the female one. We've actually got a little video coming up involving Time Bicycles around.
I mean, what can happen in female bike development now? You know, especially on smaller size frames, the shorter crank arms thing. I mean, a lot of things are opening up that weren't possible before. You're really able to do truly high performance, smaller sizes. And so there's interesting opportunities there.
And it's fantastic that sport is just growing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's some of the most fascinating racing now. It's brilliant.
Oh, it is.
So
I mean, last year's Tour de France was absolutely amazing. The women's Tour de France, well, both were great, but the women's one was fantastic.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes with that. Thank you so much, Tony, for your
welcome.
time today.
Yeah.
Thank you to Isidore, our host for this podcast. Really fantastic. You're doing a collaboration with those already.
Yeah, we're excited about it.
Can't wait to see that. It's gone dark. It's time for us to go and get a beer. I hope you guys all enjoyed that podcast. Please get your questions down below. We'll try and answer them as best we can. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Take it easy.
Thank you very much.
Started making it about 9 years ago in the first generation. And Skyline is our most aerodynamic product. It's our lightest weight product. It's our stiffest product. But it also has that classic Time durability and ride quality. And so we're really proud that we were able to focus on every one of those attributes and improve each of those for generation 2.
And that's a real balancing act.